Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It is Monday, December 19th, and I'm Maggie Gray. My first guest is keeping two Olympic dreams alive. Bobsledder and hurdler Lolo Jones joins me now. Really great to have you here. Update us, Lolo. What's going on? Are we thinking 2018 South Korea for bobsledding and 2020 for Tokyo and hurdles?
We're going for it. I just finished a race the other day in Lake Placid, New York, silver medal with my teammate Alana Myers-Taylor for bobsled. And right after bobsled season is over, I'll go right into track and field season. So we're still trucking.
Okay, this is crazy because you're 34, right? So
gosh, did you have to say it?
In real life, that is very young. In sports life, not as much. You have all these opportunities that I'm sure people approach you about by the day. Have you thought about what your second act is going to be?
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. As you get older, you get these other opportunities to do this. Like I've had film opportunities, TV shows, and it's hard because like those seem like they would be like the next move. But I still have a little bit left in these legs and heart. So we're just going to go for it. And I do have the ability to every now and then, you know, I've done film cameos. I've put stuff on the resume so that I'm not completely empty by the time I'm done being an athlete. So we'll be ready for that part of the stage.
What's the weirdest pitch someone ever gave you? They were like, you'll be perfect for this.
Oh my gosh. Well, just recently I was offered to do like a mom role, and I was just like, I am not even married. I haven't had a boyfriend in years. I don't think I have the acting capabilities to fulfill this role. Just yet.
Can't draw on any personal experience there. Okay, so speaking of your personal life, you put it out there for everyone. What's the latest? Got anyone special?
No. I will be that awkward person standing by the mistletoe at Christmas, just like, anybody? No.
Something tells me you're not going to stand there alone for long.
I don't know. It's like 10 years now, so.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I think it's just due to the fact that I'm doing two sports. I travel all the time. The only time I actually can really interact with people is on social media, so that makes it quite difficult to date.
Would you date a fan, or do you find you lean towards professional athletes because you are one?
I have dated all aspects, so just regular, just guys that have just 8 to 5 jobs, athletes, I mean, you name it, I have dated, like, tried to make this work, but it hasn't worked. So no one to fit my crazy lifestyle schedule just yet.
Okay, well,
maybe
he's
a
out
pilot.
there, Lola.
Maybe a pilot.
Pilot. He can fly you to all of your events and everything you need to do. All right, we have to talk track because we just found out this Russian state-sponsored doping scandal is much, much bigger than any of us even thought. What should the IOC do? What can they do now that we just know how pervasive this thing was?
It's insane, and you're right. No one knew how big the effects were. I just recently signed a petition with other athletes from all sports, you know, track and field, bobsled, wanting WADA to be separate from the IOC. And I think if they make that change, that we won't have instances where there's state-sponsored doping. You have to make a difference so there's no influence on one another. And I think that's the first step. And once they implement that change, they can have better control. And then they need to go on and move on to, like, there's certain athletes, especially from the Sochi Olympics, that were robbed of medals. And they need to take a really serious look into that to rectify that.
You don't want to punish everyone for a few, but this was the scope was so wide and so deep. Should the IOC say to Russia, why don't you sit this next one out? We're not going to allow you to compete.
Well, they already did in some instances, as in the track and field, the Russian track and field team was not competing in Rio Olympics. And so that was kind of like a pretty big statement. But there needs to be, like I said, if they just continue to do that, the problem's going to occur over and over again because they're not actually fixing the problem. They're just putting a Band-Aid on it. So they actually need to just make this change, make our, WADA different and separate entity, and then that way they don't have influence and they have more power to do so because right now it's all under the same umbrella, and so that's why things are getting mixed up, and it's putting a real pressure on the athletes who are clean. For me, I get drug tested all the time, countless times, at any time of the day. And when you hear stories of this, urine samples being passed through a hole in the wall and switched out for clean samples, it's like, well, why am I doing all this testing if at the end of the day, the person I'm competing against can just cheat the system?
Right. It's seems like there's not a perfect solution there, but I like what you advance, and of course, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. We'll see what happens moving forward with that. You've partnered with Girls on the Run. This is a nonprofit that really gets young girls and young women into running, empowers them by getting them into running. Drawing on your story, your own history, being homeless at one point in your life, what does this mean to these young girls?
Well, for them, I just can speak of personal, story of like how I started off running. My first pair of running shoes was donated to me. And that was just the boost I needed to like pursue my dreams. And now everybody can help another girl start off on her own path. ASICS has started this program, and it's easy. Just go an extra mile. If you download the Runkeeper app, then you can just add 1 extra mile onto a three-mile workout, and 1 pair of shoes is donated to a girl. And they've already had 50,000, I think is the number. That's insane.
Wow.
50,000 pairs of shoes has been donated by other people. And the great thing about it is, the holiday season, people are in a giving spirit, but also people are like, well, I'm crunched right now. I can't financially give, but I want to give. This is a great way to give, and all you have to do is go an extra mile.
And of course, it's the ASICS Extra Mile campaign. What's your message to those young girls who would receive a pair of these shoes?
Man, I've worked with some of these girls, and I've just told them, don't stop if you have something that just gives you a roadblock, or if you don't achieve success at the first time. And then I just tell them how the first time I tried to be an Olympic athlete, didn't even make the team. Not even the best in America. I could have hung it up there, and here I sit now, 3-time Olympic athlete. So they're gonna have setbacks, they're gonna have defeat, but they just take a learning lesson from it and use it until they can win. And I love hanging out with them. They're amazing, and they're just full of spirit and life. So
yeah, love watching these little girls with smiles on their faces. And Lolo Jones, really giving your celebrity to this great cause, and something that I know is very near and dear to your heart. Thank you so much for being here. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, and hope to catch up with you again soon. The total number of NFL teams who have clinched a playoff spot, well, that would be 4. With a look at what more to expect, here are Super Bowl champion Chris Canty and Ryan Aselta. I went 5, I meant 4. Hey, guys.
All right, Maggie, the playoff picture is really starting to take shape with Week 15 just about complete. Let's begin with the NFC showdown on Sunday Night Football, as it's the Cowboys, Chris, who come out on top of the Bucs, improving to 12-2 on the season. Good test kind of for both teams here. Let's start with Dallas, Crips. What did you learn about this Cowboys team in their victory over Tampa?
Well, I learned that the young guys can fight through adversity, and you knew that Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott had a degree of confidence, a degree of poise, but they played like it on Sunday night, primetime stage. They didn't perform last week in the Meadowlands against the New York Giants, but they stepped up big last night with the win over a hot Tampa Bay Bucs team. They got back to their formula for success, which is not turning the football over, a heavy dose of Ezekiel Elliott, and then Dak Prescott making the plays that were there in the passing game, and of course being able to utilize his legs to get outside of the pocket and run when need be to be able to convert and keep the chains moving and get first downs. First downs lead to touchdowns, and you saw a lot of that from the Dallas Cowboys last night.
Yeah, Dak looked a lot more comfortable, especially with this safety blanket. Jason Witten all of a sudden becoming a bigger part of the offense again. How about Tampa? Even though they lost the game, did they show you something in this game?
Yeah, really impressed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis Winston, he's a wizard in the pocket, just the ability to escape and be able to buy time, make plays downfield. Too many turnovers yesterday, but he felt like he was pressing a little bit, trying to be aggressive, understanding he's going up against one of the best teams in the NFC, and he was trying to make some plays for his team, help his team win. Ultimately, too many mistakes to overcome, and that was the difference in last night's ballgame.
All right, Week 16, Dallas will take on the Lions. Tampa Bay heads to New Orleans in Week 16. All right, topic number 2, are the Giants prime for a Super Bowl run? Giants defense shines again on Sunday, holding the Lions to just 6 points as they improve to 10-4 on the season. Chris, despite being behind Dallas in the NFC East, should the Giants and this vaunted defense really be considered now Super Bowl contenders?
Well, I think you have to. And I was actually at this game, had an opportunity to chop it up with several of the players, including Odell Beckham Jr. before the game. And just the intensity and the focus that those guys had, you could actually feel it. This team is starting to have that chemistry. They're gelling. They're coming together at the right moment in the season. And I think they're poised to be one of those teams to get hot at the right time. And this is a team that nobody's going to want to have to face in the playoffs. Now, I don't know that they're going to be able to catch the Dallas Cowboys for the division lead, which means they're a wild card. They're going to have to go on the road. But I don't think this team is going to be fazed by that.
What needs to improve offensively to consider them a real deep threat in the postseason? We know the issue all season's been the running game.
Well, it's the pass protection. And right, and you start talking about coupling that with the running game, being able to have balance on offense, run the ball, keep those pass rushers at bay by staying out of obvious downs and distances where you have to throw has got to be the key for the Giants. You don't want Eric Flowers and Bobby Hart out there on an island versus the premier pass rushers, which is what you're going to see in the postseason. You want to make sure that you give the guys all the help that they can, and a big part of that is being able to establish the running game. And the New York Giants did a great job of that from the opening drive until the closing drive, being able to run the football. They were able to finish the game yesterday impressively using the ground game, and that's got to be the difference for this team moving forward in terms of their identity on the offensive side of the ball.
Big injury to keep an eye on. Janoris Jenkins left that game. Giants worried about some internal organ issues, so we'll see how that plays out. He's been a big part of their success this season. All right, next, you're fired. You are so fired. The axe fell on a second NFL coach on Sunday as Gus Bradley was fired by the Jaguars after a 2-12 start to the season. Chris, this was supposed to be the team that kind of turned the quarter in the AFC South this year. What went wrong in Jacksonville?
Well, they spent a lot of money this offseason in Jacksonville in free agency, but it takes a while for those pieces to get integrated into your locker room, and I think it's just a little too late, so they're going to have to turn in a different direction. But to me, I don't think that they did a great job of drafting over the past few seasons, and so when you have a depleted roster, you have to go out and spend a lot of money in free agency, and it takes a while for those acquisitions to pay dividends. So I think that's where the Jacksonville Jaguars are now as an organization.
How about Buffalo? Rex Ryan reportedly preparing to be fired up there in Orchard Park. Why is this the right time for Buffalo to move on from Big Rex after just really 2 seasons here?
I'm not sure that it is the right time. You start looking at what they've done. Tyrod Taylor was a first-year quarterback last year. He's going into his second season. They gave him a huge contract extension. But they had a little bit of a reservation, so they put in this $27.5 million roster bonus that's payable in March. So they're not committed to him for the long term. And you look at what Rex has been able to do this season. He's 500, competitive, but not necessarily where the team saw themselves moving for this season.
Mike Shanahan's been linked to the Bills in the past. His name's floating around again. Maybe that is Buffalo's plan. We shall see. All right, the champs' fractured locker room is our next topic. Following the Broncos' loss at home to the Patriots, head coach Gary Kubiak reportedly had to break up a heated argument between the team's offensive line and defensive backs. Chris, apparently the Denver defense felt they did enough to win the game, holding Tom Brady to just 16 points. Obviously, they're frustrated with the way the offense played. How often does something like this happen within a locker room?
Well, it happens in locker rooms more often than it gets reported. You like to try to keep those things in-house, but when you saw the performance by the Denver Broncos defense yesterday, you could understand why they would be upset after the performance that they put on. Shane Ray and DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller just harassed Tom Brady all afternoon long, really didn't allow him to get into a flow. Now, the Patriots had some chunk plays. When you're a good offense like they are, you're going to get some explosive plays, even against the best of defenses. But I thought that the Broncos unit did a great job of limiting their production, particularly on the scoreboard, not allowing those guys to put up 7, holding them to 3, and trying to flip field position for their offense. But again, you're in a situation where the Broncos and Trevor Siemian on the offensive side of the ball can't play the style of complementary football that's going to help them win those games against those great opponents. You got to find a way to try to keep it in-house, and you got to find a way to move past it. But it's a tough loss for that Denver Broncos team because this is probably going to eliminate them from playoff contention. It's going to be an uphill battle, and we knew that it would be when you consider their opponents for the last 3 weeks. And losing to the New England Patriots at home is not the way that they wanted to go.
Can they recover? Is there something left to salvage here?
Well, I think you have to go out there and try to execute and try to improve your football team each and every week. So I think there's something to be gained by that, getting more experience for Trevor Siemian. But when you consider their opponents at Kansas City and then versus the Oakland Raiders to close it out, I'm not necessarily sure that they got enough to be able to beat those two teams.
Tough road ahead, as Chris mentioned, at KC in Week 16 against the Raiders in Week 17. All right, let's switch gears to college football now, where with the release of the Joe Mixton video at Oklahoma, some serious questions have been raised as to how the university and Coach Bob Stoops handled this situation. For more on this, here's Maggie with SI College football writer Lindsey Schnell.
can argue that it shouldn't be this way, that we shouldn't need to see a videotape in order to be outraged. But there is no denying watching an incident like the one between Joe Mixton and Amelia Molitor evokes a stronger reaction than just reading about it. We're going to play the video just one time to give context to our conversation. Discretion is advised. Lindsey Schnell covers college football for Sports Illustrated, and she has written about this incident. Lindsey, it was reported back in 2014 that head coach Bob Stoops, athletic director Joe Castiglione, and school president David Boren had all seen that footage before Friday's release, and all three agreed that suspending Mixon for 1 year was appropriate. How is this now reflecting on the coach and the university?
Oh, it's horrible. I cannot believe, after watching the video, you're right, Maggie, that it seems to take, we have to actually see it to be outraged. Now, I was outraged before. I didn't need to see the video. After seeing the video, it's unconscionable to me that these three men who are all in positions of power watched this video and decided, we're okay with this young man representing our program. As for the year's suspension, let's call it what it was, a redshirt year. He did not lose his scholarship. He wasn't allowed to be at team activities, but he still worked out. He got bigger, faster, stronger, and he theoretically got better so that when he joined the team last year in 2015, he would be able to help them. And he did. But the video is disgusting. I mean, it took me a few hours to be able to watch the whole thing because him hitting her is jarring enough. Her trying to stand up with her face all bloodied is just awful to me. I cannot believe that it is 2016 and we're having this conversation about violence against women and athletes.
What should the school have done, and should Bob Stoops still be coaching this program?
They should have kicked him out of school. They should have kicked him off the team. Look, we saw that at Florida State, right? With the running back who punched a woman in a bar, or it might not have been a bar, it might have been a restaurant, but there was video. The video surfaced. Jimbo Fisher, to his credit, he tossed the kid. That kid went to a junior college because I think someone good should get a second chance, but I don't think it necessarily needs to come at the highest level. That kid went to a JUCO. Now he's going to play at Florida Atlantic. They should have done something similar with Mixon. I mean, if kids don't qualify academically, they'll stick them in a JUCO sometimes and pay attention to them, re-recruit them. Why couldn't that have been the case? What's tough now is Mixon has already served a punishment. I put punishment in air quotes, but the point being that they can't punish him again. Should Stoops still be coaching his football team? No, I don't think so. I think people above him should be in trouble for this too. But I'm not sure we're going to see any sort of fan revolt, which is what you would need to really spark change at this point.
You asked Bob Stoops in your article if this was all worth it. With all the information we have now, what we've heard, what we've seen, what do you believe his honest answer would be to that question?
No, because they didn't win a national championship. That's what Joe Mixon was, that type of talent, the type of kid who could help you win a title. They had a shot. They went to the playoff last season. They lost to Clemson in the semifinal. But I think that, honestly, he would say no. Now, I hope that part of it, too, would be that he has, come to his senses about how awful this was. But I question, would his answer be motivated by, no, it wasn't worth it because it's become a PR nightmare for me. And it's not going away, Maggie. Stoops has not talked since the video has been released. He will have to talk at the Sugar Bowl where the Sooners are playing January 2nd. He'll have to talk before that at availability. What's he going to say? How can you defend this?
I don't know how you can defend it. So what do you think will be next, Lindsey? As you said, we're not seeing a big fan revolt here. No one really is calling for Bob Stoops' job. He is going to have to answer for this at some point. What happens next?
I'm not sure anything happens. I'm curious to see if this affects Mixon's draft stock. There was an article published in the Oklahoman early last week with an NFL scout saying, the sooner the video comes out, the better, because Mixon can put distance between himself and the release of the tape. But there was an incident earlier this year where Mixon ripped up a parking ticket and threw it at an attendant, clearly trying to intimidate her. And to me, what that communicates is Joe Mixon has not changed at all as a human being. So will that affect his draft stock? I'm not sure. Probably what's going to happen is Bob Stoops and Joe Castiglione and David Boren are going to continue to cash big-time checks and be in charge of this program. One of their students in the school newspaper pointed out last week, they've got a habit of this. They let Frank Shannon play. They, brought in Dorial Green-Beckham. It's a pattern there, and I'm not sure that they really care about women, and they don't have an argument to prove that they do.
Nor has there been anything to show that anyone is holding them accountable, that being the football team, for any of the actions that their football players are perpetrating against women. Lindsey Schnell, I encourage everyone to go and read Lindsey's piece on SI.com right now. Fantastic job, Lindsey. Appreciate you weighing in on a very difficult topic. Thank you.
Of course, anytime.
And now it's time for our SI Now full-on feature countdown to the new year. For the next 10 episodes of SI Now, we'll count down our 10 favorite features of 2016. In no particular order of greatness because, well, we like them all. Coming in at number 10 on the countdown, he's called the Great One for the way he played hockey. But as we found out, Wayne Gretzky's penchant for telling hockey stories is pretty great too. Here's our own Ryan Aselto with number 99 himself, Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne, the book is titled 99 Stories of the Game. A couple of things that I noticed came through right away. Not only being a Hall of Fame player, you're clearly a fan of the game of hockey. Mm-hmm. Why was it so important for you to tell these stories about the game through your eyes?
I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity to get to play in the National Hockey League. So many great players, so many great buildings, so many storied franchises. And through all that, we have probably the greatest trophy in all of professional sports worldwide. So it was just fun for me to sit around and talk hockey for days and hours and endlessly tell different stories and find out new things that I really didn't know back in the 20s and 30s. But all in all, it was just a passion of mine to share with kids around the world.
Many of the games you spoke of in the book weren't games you actually played in.
Right.
Is there a game, a great game over the years in the history of the sport that you wish you had a chance to play in?
Oh yeah, only one. I wish I could have been on the 72 Team Canada team that played against the Soviet Union.
Start, and the face-off, and the game is underway with Petrov having cleared it into the Canadian zone.
The Summit Series, as it was called, was the first time that professional players played against amateur players. We thought as Canadians, coast to coast, that we were going to walk through this series. We're up 2-0 in game one. Everybody thought it was going to be a disaster and a blowout. We went on to lose 7-3. We went across the country to Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, and before we knew it, we were down 3-1 in a tie. And the team rallied around each other and came back and won the next 3 games to win the series. And I often teased that had we not won, I don't know if the history of our game would be talked about as quite as much. For one series, it was the most dominant I ever saw one player, and that was Phil Esposito, and how he carried not only the team, but a country on his back. And I wish I could have played in that series with him.
I'm disappointed about having to leave Edmonton. I truly admire all the fans and respect everyone over the years.
Chapter in the book called The Last Dynasty. You guys won 4 cups in 5 years, and then that core was broken up. You think back, if you guys had stayed together, how many you could have won?
Oh, we'll never know. We do sit around thinking that I wish I could have won it 9 times or 10 times. I'll be honest about that. We had a great group of guys, and it was one goal and one ambition. That was to be unselfish and be a team and win a championship.
And it's with mixed emotions, a heavy heart for our community and our hockey club, but I guess with delight and sincere best wishes for Wayne Gretzky, that I announce, and I guess more important, confirm that the Edmonton Oilers have agreed to trade Wayne Gretzky to Los Angeles.
The trade to the Kings at the time, many felt it was the league driven, that the
Right.
league wanted you to get to that market to Los Angeles. What was the true driving force behind that deal?
Well, yeah, that really wasn't true at all. It really came down to a business decision or business philosophy that I didn't, I saw one way and the owner saw the other way. I would have had 1 year left on my contract, and I would have been an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and he wanted me to sign a long-term deal, and I basically was wanting to wait to see what the open market was. When that wasn't going to transpire, he sort of said, okay, give me a list of 4 teams and, we'll work something out here. And I said, okay. So my first choice was Detroit because I grew up a Red Wing fan, Gordie Howe. My wife was on board. Wherever we were going to go, that was fine. And my dad, who jumped in and said, there's only one Gordie Howe. You should go to LA.
And Westwood on the San Diego Freeway northbound before Sunset Boulevard.
My very first exhibition game, there was 9,000 people at the game thinking, wow, we got a lot of work to do here.
Down to Gretzky, left side, he goes behind the net, he wraps around in front, he shoots, he scores!
The timing of it was just perfect in the sense that the guys who were there, Robitaille and McSorley and Kelly Rudy, Tony Granata, Rob Blake, they understood that it was more than just another hockey team in the NHL, that we had to do other things that teams didn't do. And so the guys were always quick to help out youth hockey and go to high school hockey and all the things that go with that. And then on top of that, this kid from Calgary went to St. Louis, Brett Hall, and rejuvenated the game of hockey in St. Louis and single-handedly saved that franchise. And then Mark Messier went to the Rangers. And then we had this young kid who happened to be one of the greatest players ever come into Pittsburgh and save that franchise. And now you got all these guys together all across the country who are superstars and, more importantly, had charisma and were good people and understood where they fit in the game. So it was a wave that we all rode, and it wasn't just necessarily because of what I did.
How about for you personally? You had such success early, though. Now, everyone remembers the Cups in Edmonton. You went on to play 11 more seasons outside of Edmonton. What was it like for you kind of chasing greatness the rest of your career?
Well, listen, when you come in the league at 18, as I did, our first sort of mindset is survival. Like, we want to be able to stay in the league. I was saying Austin Matthews got 4 goals his first game. I didn't score my first goal till my 4th or 5th game. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, geez, maybe I'm going to get sent to the minors. Your attention quickly turns to, okay, this is a great situation here. We got to win. We got to figure out how to win. We used to hang pictures of Beliveau with the cup and Howe and Bobby Clark. They'd be pictures out of magazines just hanging in the locker room, and everybody would see them every day. And for years and years, and that was what our goal was to lift the cup. And then ultimately, when you win it, you become selfish and say, I want to win it again next year. But that's what makes the cup so unique and so genuine, is you don't get to win it every year.
You can only imagine how great that Edmonton team could have been if they all stayed together. That's going to do it for this Monday edition of SI Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow when I'll be joined by big wave surfer Ian Walsh. That happens at 1 p.m. Eastern. But until then, stick with SI.com and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.